judgment surely doesn't come cheap, but just one costly mistake done by the wrong person could turn a routine visit into a major health nightmare.
A trip to a beauty salon. It's time to relax and rejuvenate. That is, unless you've got an appointment with a beauty nightmare. Take, for example, this model who claims her manicurist filed her nails so short her fingers bled. She ended up in the hospital where doctors had to remove 2 of her fingernails. Or what about this woman who paid for expensive hair extensions at a salon and a few weeks later ended up with itchy lumps on her head? The night before her 29th birthday, these boils in her hair burst and oozed pus. Doctors had to remove the infection with a scalpel. Clearly, any party plans were ruined by the ordeal. Are incidents like these rare, or are these signs of a coming spa-apocalypse?
Oh, no fun. And skin issues are her thing. We're glad to welcome back dermatologist Dr. Sonia Batra to discuss really 2 different beauty nightmares, starting with that nail nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, this is hard to just look at those pictures.
So the nail nightmare, I mean, it's your nail plate, the hard part of your nail, is actually meant to protect you against infection and trauma. I mean, evolutionarily, it evolved there as a defense mechanism. So I think what happened here was that when that tech kept filing and kept filing, I don't know why the patient didn't have pain or didn't notice that it was bleeding.
Don't let them talk on the telephone while they're doing your nails.
Because a lot of times there looks like what we're looking at. It looks like after they've actually taken the fingernail off because of probably such a severe infection after the initial.
Exactly.
And Dr. Batra, I mean, you've treated them in the ER. I mean, as a hand surgeon, I know. I mean, these little things in and around the nails can lead to real serious infections that work their way up the hand and form these so-called hand space infections.
And
you could lose your hand.
I go to the salon to get my nails done probably every 2 weeks, and I see you do too.
You two are rocking it today. Look at that.
There are a couple things that I do in a salon to try to make sure that some of this doesn't happen. Like the first time someone is cutting my cuticle and I have to go, ouch, I stop them and I say, you know what? No more cutting of the cuticle.
It's not supposed to hurt, and it's not supposed to bleed.
No, it's not supposed to hurt, and it's not supposed to bleed. The other thing is I'd never let them talk on the telephone while they're doing your nails because they get distracted. They're talking or looking at the TV, and before you know it, they've done too much. So don't let anyone overdo anything that's happening with your nails. And, you know, personally, the last show that tapes for this season, I'm going gel nail free, and I cannot wait to see my regular nails.
If you want to avoid a nail nightmare, go somewhere you trust, make sure they know what they're doing, make sure the equipment is sterile. Now, hair extension nightmare. Those pictures, our birthday.
So the thing is, when they sew these hair extensions in, they use a needle. And I suspect that that needle was contaminated with bacteria. And so every time it made a little nick or a little injury in the skin, it was like a doorway for bacteria.
Wait, they sew them into the scalp?
Yes, they sew, no,
into the hair.
They sew them into the hair.
So they'll actually
Because I don't do hair extensions, ladies. I don't do it. Never.
I think it's the same analogy.
We've done the demonstration.
TV too when they're
to the hair. So they'll usually braid your own hair almost into cornrows, and then they'll actually sew the extension onto that. But you can nick the actual skin of the scalp when you're sewing
they're
hair to hair.
like nicking the scalp? That sounds terrible.
Bacteria gets in.
If they do it too tightly, if they're doing it too tightly, what happens is we have a little bit of contraction, alopecia. And so what ends up happening is if it's too tight and your weave is too tight, now it's constantly inflamed. And it makes it very easy when you go to scratch it or touch it for you to introduce infection. So do not let anybody sew your hair on so tightly that you have to take an Advil afterwards. That's one thing. And the other thing is make sure they're using a new needle each time they weave your head.
Now, this really gets back to the same idea, which is just be careful when you roll into any sort of salon or spa. Make sure they know what they're doing. Dr. Batra, will you stick around?
Thank you.
Let's go to a spa day. Come on.
We're going to go to a spa day.